Hi, folks. You were Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the effect that think tanks appear to be having on mass migration policy of Western governments. I'm just going through the migration justification papers of one Western government that wants to ramp up migration quite considerably from its already very high levels. It constantly uses references to the advice provided by various think tanks, but one think tank in particular seems to have a very prominent place in the figuring. So this is the usual globalist device here, or scam, deception that they pull on the people, saying that well, the experts have said we have to increase the mass migration, the amount of migration. We have to increase it. The experts have said so. It's not us. It's not us. We're not saying so. It's the experts. They said so. We're only doing what the experts have told us to. That was a very Soviet trick, by the way, as well. The news agency TASS and Pravda and all that in the old Soviet Union, when they were about to do something new, they would assure the readers it's the experts. The experts told us to do it. And really that same playbook's being used in the West and has been for a while. Now, these think tanks are pretty much set up for the sole purpose of pretending to be experts and pretending to give advice and pretending to be... The advice is independent. They've weighed the evidence. They've meticulously gone through the evidence, and they've come up with the advice that we have to massively increase migration from the third world of black and brown illiterate peasants. That's the only way we can save the economy. There is no other way. The experts have spoken. And so it's all part of the deception sort of mirage and the duplicity game and the justification process, the puppet show that's put on for the public consumption. I really do think a lot of the politicians in the West now are dumb enough to think that they are getting a quality advice of some sort. So anyway, the think tank that within one immigration justification paper, again, it only ever goes one way. I don't think I've ever seen a think tank that the government's relied on that said, hey, you need to really decrease the migration, absolutely stop it altogether. I don't, if there is one, I haven't seen it or heard about it, and I've looked for one. So every think tank they go to seems to tell them exactly what the globalists want, which is an increase in mass migration of brown and black peasants into the West. So this is the one think tank that was quoted the most. Now, it doesn't take much to go online and just have a look at this think tank and go through some of and it's so obviously an activist organisation, yet none of the media cover it. Not one of the politicians in Parliament has mentioned it or covered it or made a reference to this. Not one. Nowhere in the media is this covered. And this stuns me sometimes. It really does, because I'm a guy just in my lounge room here, and I can find out in 5 minutes what's going on, but somehow it's impossible for anyone else. Now, here's this particular thing. This is the one that this government is pretty much relying on to justify a very substantial increase in mass migration from levels that are already quite high. So you go onto the website of this thing. It claims to be providing independent, for fuck's sake, what a lie, providing independent, evidence-based research. It's based on the evidence that the experts have said on social policy, policy development, and migration policy. These are the things that this think tank is focusing on. Now, the advice they give just perfectly, seamlessly aligns with the globalist project and the World Economic Forum and all that sort of stuff. So the idea that it's independent, it's evidence-based, is an absolute nonsense, a grotesque untruth. But let's have a look at the people. Now, the top 12 people, these are the guys or the folks at the apex. So of these top 12 people, 4 are Pakistani, all Muslims. 1 is a Bangladeshi. Now, there's then, of the 7 remaining people of the top 12, there's 1 lesbian and 3 homosexual activists. And of those 7, 5 are well-known mass migration activists who have spoken publicly, before joining this think tank about the need to increase migration. There's of those 5, 3 of those 5 previously worked in refugee rights activist groups and NGOs and so on. Now, I don't know what intellectual caliber any of these people bring to the table. I would say none from the looks of it, looking at their backgrounds. But effectively, we're looking at a bunch of activists, all of whom are advocating mass migration for various reasons. Some of them are the gay lesbian thing, for example. They put out these things that the world is awash with gay lesbians in all sorts of oppressive societies, so they all have to be brought to the West. And there's the refugee mass migration, people escaping oppression, the refugee camps, people escaping war, and da da da. So they're effectively saying the entire world has the right to come to the West, and that the Western government should take. There's not one mention of skills. When they do mention skills, it's done in a very fuzzy, sort of abstract way. And these people will provide the much needed skills. But what people? So the illiterate peasants from the third world in the refugee camps, are they the skilled people you're talking about? Are they the engineers and the scientists and the rocket scientists and the brain surgeons? I don't think so. I'd be very surprised if any of them were qualified to do anything other than drive a taxi or push a broom. Push a broom, because they're probably illiterate in their own language, let alone any European language. So they're just an advocacy group. They're given, and if you look at the amount of NGOs that contribute to them and the government money they get and that sort of thing, they're simply there to advocate for mass migration and to appeal to all the special interest groups, like, we'll bring over more brown homosexuals so the gay community will be happy. We'll bring over more, black lesbians so the lesbian community will be happy, and so on. So they're trying to appeal to people, all these simple third world peasants. Just think about it. Girls, you've got all these lesbians. It's really quite sick and horrible when you think about it. But they're just an advocacy group advocating for globalist policies and mass migration and creating race, gender, and sexuality division in Western societies, and they're all. But why Western government would be giving serious money, by the way, to a think tank where all of the top people are either not European at all, or advocating for gay, lesbian, and so on issues. I mean, it's just quite beyond me, but it illustrates, as far as I'm concerned, just how perverse the whole thing has become, when these are meant to be the independent advisors to the government, when they're nothing of the sort. You're being with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.